List of topics there, don't you?
Yeah, well, hello everybody. Welcome back to our weekly AI Revolution call, as we call it. I'm Bryce Smith with 10,000 Days Hedge Fund and Trading with Cody. And with me today, as always, is John D. Olivera, or John Dio, as he also goes by. So, as always, again, there is lots of exciting things happening in AI and in the AI revolution. And this week did not disappoint. I think there is a lot of fairly substantial AI news, I would call it. Would you agree with that, John, this week?
It's been a good week.
And among other things, so one of the things that we'd like to do just at the forefront is like look at what's happening in AI and then try to analyze the economic impacts of it and how it will impact companies, because obviously at the hedge fund we're investing in this technology, and then trying to find companies that are maybe going to be disrupted by it or avoid those types of companies. So I guess we could talk about maybe, I think the biggest thing that came up this week, in my opinion, is the Meta's release of the LLaMA 3. And for those that don't know, llama is not a four-legged creature with fluffy hair. LLaMA, I'm going to mess up what it stands for. Do you know what LLaMA stands for? It's an AI model.
Well, it starts with an LL, and so does large language model. So
yeah.
But I actually didn't know the acronym on it.
I'm looking it up.
Okay.
I should have done this.
Well, Bryce looks up the acronym for LLaMA. But anyway, whenever you have one of these things come out and it's got a name like llama or whatever, then everyone plays off it anyway. So there's something called alpaca. There's something called LLaMA. Anything related to llamas will end up meaning something in this little ecosystem around it.
So LLaMA means large language model meta AI. I don't. I guess LA is language, large language model, meta AI.
Yeah. I don't know. So they don't have to have a letter for every letter.
Yes. And A, everything's capitalized except for the A. So.
And anyway. M, if there's two M's, it collapses. Yeah. Model and meta collapses into one. So.
Oh, right. So, I mean, this isn't the first iteration of a model from Meta. Meta's been working on AI for a long time, and mainly because they use it in their algorithms to recommend content. If you go way back in the day, the beginnings of social networks, you followed people. I followed John, and then I would see John's posts. And now that has morphed into, not only do I see John's posts, I see posts from a lot of other people in the whole universe of social media that the algorithm deems potentially relevant and maybe interesting to me. And so in order to do that, ByteDance, TikTok, Twitter, Meta, and others had to use machine learning to teach computers how to automatically recognize which posts might be engaging to which users. And so Meta has a long history of doing that with AI, but now they've actually released an open source large language model, and it's available to the entire world of AI creators and developers to use and build applications on.
There's two things interesting there. The first was that that they went open source, and that they were, and if you go back to LLaMA 2 did it very intentionally. Before that, it was sort of like leaked, I guess, but it was it put them out there as a very large provider with a whole lot of processing power that open sourced what they were doing, and that was very important to the whole open source community. Then with this last one, still open source, they are competing with the big boys, really, right? The performance on this and just how well it answers questions and everything is pretty astounding. And that's with they have two of them out so far. They're going to have a third one that's bigger, two of them in terms of like parameter size. And so this is going to be interesting to watch, because, and especially the most recent thing I saw about that was how if you look specifically at English, because if you look at kind of multilingual around the world kind of thing, they score high, but not the very top or something. But if they were really focused in on English with what they were doing. So like, you make that comparison English to English, they're up there against GPT-4, right?
You're still talking about LLaMA 3 or LLaMA 2?
3. LLaMA 3, yeah. So, yeah.
That's pretty impressive, because what's OpenAI's valuation now in the private market? So I think it's over $100 billion. And basically Meta just is giving away for free, I think, what OpenAI is, reportedly worth $100 billion for,
Well, also, it's what OpenAI produced 2 years ago and put out a year ago. And so you got to figure that in a little bit as well. So that means that you should be expecting, GPT-5 sooner rather than later, considering the competition they're up against.
John, do you know how long is the lag time between like training a model and then you get an initial output from that model, and then fine tuning, human reinforced feedback, all that other kind of back end work that goes into it before it's released to the public?
I don't have an exact number. My number in my head for what they ended up doing with 4 was at least 6 months on the human feedback part of things.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. Elon tweeted today in response to somebody talking about their FSD software that Tesla is about 3 to 6 months ahead of whatever the public knows. So they're fixing to release another upgrade to their FSD software, but they're already working on something that won't be coming out for another 6 months, because of this fine tuning. And then Tesla has to deal with the safety aspects of it driving a car in real life. So that probably increases the lead time a little bit more. Well, one of the things, so Mark Zuckerberg, sticking with the Meta thing, did a podcast last week and talked a lot about LLaMA 3, and this was right after LLaMA came out. One of the interesting things he said in that podcast was that because you talk about agents a lot, John, and the LLaMA, he said LLaMA 3 was able to just go out and Google things because it's integrated with Google and Bing, but they didn't have to code it to tell it to go Google things. If you don't know the answer to something, it just goes and Googles it. Now, I'm sure there was some coding on the back end tying Google and Bing into the Meta AI, but they didn't have to tell it how to do that once it was integrated, And he said that was a pretty big improvement for them. And he's like, certain agency type things are just a factor of the models themselves getting better. And then other things we have to go, hey, if you want this to, integrate with Google Maps, or you want it to integrate with Yelp and pull a review on food, then, that's going to take some coding. But as these AIs get better and better with each iteration, there's going to be less and less hard coding of the agency part of that.
And some of that coding now comes down to, I'll go find the page that documents the API for that service, and then it automatically writes the code needed for the integration and then uses it. So even that can become quite automatic.
Right. So even the hard coding gets incrementally easier as the LLMs themselves get better. I think LLaMA 3 is supposed to be really good at coding too. I think that's one of its strong suits. When Meta was looking at and making LLaMA 3 from LLaMA 2, they didn't know what all the use cases would be, when they released LLaMA 2, and they saw how much people were using it to code, and they're like, the next iteration needs to be really, really good at coding, because that's how people want to use it.
Something else that I saw Mark Zuckerberg point out was how that they're headed in the direction of kind of it's not mind reading, it's the opposite. What is it? Telepathy, kind of getting the computer to do things by sort of thinking about it, but without drilling into your head. So, that's a reference to, Neuralink and what gets done there. I mean, really, Neuralink's a special case. doing that for folks that are quadriplegic, or there's been one person so far, but it's been successful. And so this ability to kind of read your mind literally and use that to determine what you go do on your computer and so forth. Well, Zuckerberg was talking about something that you wear on your wrist, and just the movements of your fingers, even if you don't move them, if you think about moving them, there's a certain kind of signal that's sent that you can pick up on. And I heard him start talking about that. And I remembered that years ago, I don't know, was it 5 years or there was a company that it was making an interface that you wear on your forearm and that picks up on you on these like tiny electrical readings out of your arm. And I was looking at the time for gesture interfaces, things you could use that would like let you just do whatever or think about it or whatever and have it just happen. Well, it just so happens that I found this out back then, that you stopped hearing about them because they got acquired by Facebook.
So, oh, really?
Yeah. So when he's talking about this stuff and it's like, oh, our scientists have figured out such and such, it's like, yeah, you acquired that technology.
Yeah. That Zuckerberg is the best at that. I mean, Instagram, WhatsApp, like to his credit, those Instagram at least was much, much smaller whenever they bought it. I think they were a 20-person shop, and they paid $1 billion to buy it. So pretty impressive.
No, I mean, I'd love it if they make it more useful and valuable, et cetera, than it was going to be. You could Google it. It was called the Myo, MYO armband. Okay. And that's what they bought. Now, if they can go do more with it, now comes the question: do they go the LLaMA route? And it's like, we have this thing, and you can go use it. I don't know what's going to happen with their eyeglasses. In the difference between, is it purely an interface device, you go get it and do what you want, or is it like integrated to their services? Like, so getting it means that all your data is going to Meta. That's the kind of question I have about that.
They actually announced, Mark Zuckerberg announced today, I think this goes to your question, but they're open sourcing their operating system for the VR AR stuff. And I don't remember what he called it, but this just dropped today. And so like if another company wants to build hardware, like he just talked about some potential hardware that could be out there, like a specific glasses just for working. So they're like super lightweight, and maybe not as much high definition for like what you would need for gaming. Well, you could still run it on Meta's OS. And then they're working with Microsoft and Xbox, may make their own specific headset that just ships with the Xbox, and it's optimized, has better graphics and stuff like that, better sound for gaming. And so, yeah, there's, at least with that aspect of it, Meta is going to do the open source route again on allowing that allowing that operating system to be modified and tweaked, just like Microsoft is. I think
that's a good move. I mean, I think that you've got who are you up against? Apple, and they're going to be proprietary. So Apple has their Vision Pro is the iPhone of AR VR, so to speak, and now Facebook could be the Android of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what he sees with that dynamic, and that's what they're going for there. I don't know. It's interesting, Zuckerberg. I mean, we've probably talked about him a lot, but maybe not quite as much as like Elon and stuff. But he seems to be like pushing the envelope, I think, with a lot of his ideas, whether it's in the AR, VR, or AI, and they're kind of setting some trends now. And I really think they were a little bit of a late comer to the AI universe, other than like what I said earlier about their ad targeting and content recommendations. But all this other stuff they're doing now is really moving into kind of a broader ecosystem of AI and virtual reality. And at some point, it's probably going to merge together those two aspects of the company.
And it's interesting to see how it shakes out. It's like we're watching these different companies. We've been watching OpenAI. Certainly, Microsoft was kind of made a big move there when they were helping get Sam back in at OpenAI. And then when they didn't settle there and they're working with multiple different parties, Google made their move when they took on Suleiman, the new CEO to run Google's AI, which is interesting because they have because they have the DeepMind guy. He's the other guy from DeepMind who came out, right? But but the other DeepMind guy is still the head of DeepMind. So this guy's the head of like Google AI, which they're both owned by Alphabet, and underneath the same umbrella. And then so we're watching these. We saw Stability AI, and they're having troubles. They kind of let their CEO go, and they were maybe looked at as for the competition on image creation, but also just on being on the side of more open source large models and things. And now you got Facebook and Apple. And we're talking about Facebook now. What about Apple? They're making their own kind of move, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I think the rumor is now that they will be introducing an LLM that it will run just on the device, on the phone or Mac, and that's a big change. As right now, whether it's Meta or OpenAI or whoever, you're interacting with the LLM through a browser, and it's running on the cloud, Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. And so, and it's powered by, these huge data centers. So for Apple to be able to have a powerful LLM that's useful and power efficient enough to run on your phone and not drain the battery in 30 minutes, that's going to be a pretty big innovation in the LLM space, I think.
Yeah, so you can run LLaMA 8B on your laptop, but to go and say it's going to run on your phone, or it's going to really be there and sort of make it part of the OS. I see advantages there, and I see some potential risks. On the advantage side, you're hopefully running pretty quickly. You've got the whole privacy thing, which Apple likes to take a good position on. On the downside, I wonder how well can they keep up as things advance? If they say that it's down on the laptop, on the phone, do they mean it's in hardware, or do they just mean that they're coming out with their version of something that they going to optimize for it using the M1 GPU for doing what it's got to do, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would imagine, just thinking this through, that the next iPhone, if it's going to have integrated AI, it's going to have integrated AI hardware, and I think Apple's Apple has a really good history now with developing custom silicon products for its hardware, and so I imagine the next central processing unit in the iPhone, the M4 or whatever it will be, will probably have certain cores, like dedicated cores that just do AI, like accelerated computing. Whereas previously that those weren't built into there, because you need a little bit of a different computer architecture if you're going to run a large language model locally. It's not going to work. I don't think it would work as well on just a regular old CPU.
Well, it's not just a CPU already, because if the M1, M2, M3 chips have integrated GPU on the same, I don't know if it's on the same die, but it's in the same little platform. And yes, it's not as maybe optimized toward LLM processing as it could be, but you could meet in the middle and be like, we're going to make sure our LLM makes use of that GPU well. But for sure, they're a hardware company, so if they can make something that creates a compelling experience. And they also said that they're, I think, not trying to be the fastest thing out there. They're trying to create the best experience, the most useful thing out there. And that what would make it really useful is the stuff that everybody's talking about, to do with agents, or to do with the actions of the device being able to be smartly controlled by the AI that's in your device. So you can sit there and talk to it, and it can do whatever you could do, on that device.
Do you foresee a big improvement to Siri coming as well then with this possible?
It has to. If not replaced, if you're okay with leaving Siri as the front end, kind of, or if it becomes one voice among several, why would you, you can't leave it there as is. It's just too dumb compared to these things. Will instead allow for, much better kind of interaction than what you do with Siri. And if you can get, and they should be aiming for like really good interaction, really good back and forth. I know what you did. I know what you've done so far. I know the things you want to do and so forth. Not like, oh, well, go to settings and choose such.
Yeah.
No, you go to settings. You're the AI.
Right. And that's, I mean, I don't know if you've used the chat feature on ChatGPT on the app. I guess you could do it on the computer, but I do it on my phone a lot, even when I'm driving, like through my truck. Like the back and forth with ChatGPT's, I don't know what they call the voice, but it's like talking to a human.
It's terrific. The only thing I want is to lower the latency, make it faster. Don't have as much kind of dead air between when I finish talking and it starts talking. If it could just get that part, because other than that, and the other thing I wanted to do is to have better memory of past conversations. Each time it's like, hi, who are you?
Right.
So
Apple could do that well because they know so much about you anyways. Like if all of that context is fed into the AI on your device and it's kept private, then it could be a really powerful tool for the consumer.
I say it's because they care, and that's something that matters to them as a brand, is to be really good at user experience, interacting with you, getting personal, understanding what you need. So now the AI is perfect for that. You just got to go and make the right use of it. And I expect them to do a good job at something like this.
So the next level of that then is like apps. If every app on the iPhone, on the iTunes App Store, is going to need to be like AI capable then, right? Is every developer going to have, once that version, let's just fast forward a year and the hardware's out, iPhone 16 or 17 is shipping with it built-in AI, Spotify needs to integrate with that, right? And everybody else.
I think if you do that, you're waiting too long. And I feel like they ought to be able to bypass that by using the equivalent of like GPT-V, the vision model, to be, doing the equivalent of snapshotting your screen every second and knowing, like being able to see what it is that you're looking at and being able to interpret where the window is, which app it is that it's looking. It should train on everything in the App Store and know from a glance what app that you are in.
Yeah.
And then it should have a model similar to the Rabbit R1 of knowing what's the kind of, what are the interaction models with each of these kinds. Oh, it's a game. It's got a hamburger menu. Let me go look under there and see whatever. It's like, it should be able to do much better than waiting around for APIs to show up.
That's a really good point, I think. Is that true of the internet as well, and that the agents are good enough or will get good enough that they'll be able to interact with websites that were built, like Trading with Cody, for example, before we updated it was built. Cody did it, 15 years ago. An agent could go on Trading with Cody and navigate to the chat room and ask a question without us ever updating Trading with Cody. That's what you're saying. Yeah,
and I think that already we're starting to see it. A couple of agent-related apps that do that kind of thing. It seems like it's that there's those two pieces to it. One is, on my desktop or with my apps and, all the things that are local. And the other is everything that's happening on the web. But in general, having a kind of intelligence around those things to be able to carry out interactions.
Zooming out a little bit, it seems like with the app revolution, as Cody talked about for years with Apple and Google, we went from like one interface and now we have thousands and millions of apps that we all interface with. Is ChatGPT and Facebook and all this other AI, is it going to take us back to like one interface where you interact with the AI and then it goes out and does, all these other things for you?
I kind of hope so. I think
because it would be much simpler, right? Like even the password crap. Everybody's trying to remember their password all the time. If the AI was smart enough, you could tell it, and AI could remember your passwords. It could go do all those things without you. Okay, what did I use this time? Oh, I forgot. I need to reset it.
I think people have the worry that once it can do all those things, that means it can, empty my bank account or whatever. It's like, be careful what you allow. But in general, I think so. I hope so. I didn't like the fracturing that came with everything's its own little app, because what it did is it made kind of does what microservices do, which is it makes this little island out of, it can do this thing, but it maintains its own data. And so over here, it does its own other little thing and it maintains its own data. And if more like, no, it's just my data. My data is my, my data, my knowledge, everything that I know, everything that I care about, that's all right here as one big thing. And if I got to go make use of little apps to go make certain things happen, that's fine. But I'm not going to have like my data living out and all those things. That's my hopeful way of looking at it.
Yeah, it sure seems like it would be more efficient and potentially more private. Like you're saying, if the data is all kept centrally, but assuming that central repository data is never compromised.
And, and I've heard like cloud is safer than your own machine in some cases. Well, they certainly put a lot more effort on, security and things, certain cloud environments do than you bother doing with your own machine and so forth. But like if it's like, I don't want to give out my data, it's like, okay, that's the, go get LLaMA, bring it onto your own machine, do everything locally. And then, so what, there's some people who can do that themselves. And it's like, oh, I'm going to get this language model. I'm going to load it in, install it, program things, whatever. And then there's like the majority of people. But are there some people who provide services or applications that help you go do that thing locally? They're like, I know you're going to have your own, you're going to keep it all where you are. It's on your own machine, etc. But I'm going to give you this to go work on or work with as you do that kind of thing.
So are you saying that there will be, you're saying that there'll be companies or products that help you bring the LLM locally? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And am I saying that's going to be the case? I don't know. I'm suggesting it could be, but that is what I'm suggesting, is that it could be the case that, that you have this notion of, now I've got something like LLaMA, which is as good as GPT-4, maybe, looks like it could be. And yet I don't send my data out there to use it. It's all happens here and so forth. And I'm saying, well, that sounds great, but most people don't know how to do anything with that. So is room there for kind of some products or services to be offered that make it easier to download this, go click, and you could be off the internet and you'd be able to use what it does, kind of thing.
Yeah, I could definitely, if Apple and Microsoft don't hurry up and build the AI into the underlying operating system, then that's definitely going to happen. I think there's just too much demand for that. And I guess even if it does happen, even if Apple and Microsoft do that, there still may be a place for it, because you want to get the open sourced meta locally private, your own LLM. So I saw somebody post like how to do it, like how to get the LLaMA 3 on your computer and run it locally. But yeah, like you said, 90% of people.
There's an application called put an O in front of it, LLaMA.
LLaMA.
It's not a language model. There's another way as well. I'm not remember the name offhand, but it's one that supports like reading your PDF and things like that. But there's
Interesting.
multiple of them. What's up?
I said that's interesting. I'll have to play with that, the LLaMA.
Yeah, you can bring it local. It's just that it's not for the faint-hearted. It's if you're somebody who like has heard the word Python, you could probably go do something there. If you're not or don't want to be, that's what I'm saying. Somebody's going to go and start to make this stuff happen. But like, even if they do, though, it's always still a moving target and still developing, right? Because OpenAI is not resting. They're going to come out with something. And when they do, if it's enough better, what does that do? Do people say, never mind? Or do they say, what I was going to get out of something like LLaMA that came out is still really useful and I'm going to go do that? Or do they say, oh man, look at that bright, shiny object?
Yeah, I mean, are we in the middle of like, is it like an AI arms race right now of who's got the fastest model with the most parameters? And one day it's OpenAI, and then it's Meta, and then it's Anthropic, and then OpenAI comes back. I mean,
well, it's an arms race for AGI, right? It's everybody's like that. You can do all these shufflings, and yes, that's going on just as you described. But at least the way they talk about it is that they're going for AGI, artificial general intelligence, having computers that are operating really at a human level, able to just do what humans do.
At what point do switching costs become a factor? Because like right now, like I was playing on these earlier, doing some work, and I was switching between ChatGPT, Meta, Anthropic. I didn't use Copilot, but I used something else. I thought I had 3 or 4 of those. Oh, Gemini, Google Gemini. It was so bad I can't even think of Gemini. We own Google. I love Google, but Gemini is bad still, I think. But like, there's nothing stopping me from taking the same prompt, copying and pasting it into 4 different models and seeing which one I use best. And like, at some point, I think that's going to change, right? But like, what will be the impetus for all of a sudden, like, oh no, I want to use ChatGPT because it's got all my data in there and it knows everything about me,
Yeah, I think what is the friction against changing is like settling in. Like OpenAI is the one that had the ChatGPT moment. So everybody looks at it, and until something else is not like a little better, but like really noticeably better, it's like, why would I, spend the time? Like, you want to spend the time because you're really, focused on this, but somebody's trying to get their day done and so forth, why they're going to go do that unless there's really substantial difference. And then when what would make someone change is like a real step change. And that's where I look. I'm looking for GPT-5. I want to see, and they may not come. They may come out with, like they just did recently. They did a new 4.5 something or another just here in April.
Turbo or something.
No, it was after Turbo, but it was another one. It was the April release, and it could have been another Turbo because they'd said Turbo before anyway. But so whatever it is that I'm looking for them to come out with something that is like Sora for language models. So like UDO for language models, something that when I see it, I go, oh man, look at it. Everything just changed again. And maybe they do it, maybe somebody else does it. There have been steps, but they're not big enough. So one step is, huge context, being able to say, oh, we have 1 million or 10 million. Now you can stick a whole, movie into the context, which is the context is like the memory that it's using as it's going to answer your question. It's like it's working memory in addition to the model itself. And you're saying, so you can go, given your model and given this multi-megabyte thing that I'm going to go give you as extra info, tell me this. And it goes and and does its thing. So that was a big one. I don't think it was a drop everything. If multimodal got better with how it makes use of vision in, vision out, audio in, audio out as more like a comprehensive single kind of thing that's easy to use. If it got the things we were talking about with like seeing what's on your screen as you see it and is going like, oh no, it's the one to the right of that. So that it's doing what, like if we got on a video conference and I showed you my screen and I was trying to do something and you were like saying, no, look next to that. You see how it's got that thing? Click there. If it's doing that, or if it's even doing the clicking, right? Okay, now, wow, right? If it's agencies, if it's agent stuff that gets easier to use. Right now, agents are, yes, you can do it, but you're coding it in the API and setting up each different one. But if it's like, hey, you want me to go bring in my other AI friend and that one will represent this and this one will do that, and they'll be talking to each other and then they'll come back and say whatever. Maybe take what Microsoft just made and, which is a thing we didn't talk about, but they came out with real-time audio video integration of someone talking. I don't think we talked about that last week.
No, we didn't talk about it, but I did see that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. It's like, I could be not me now because but they're not going to release it because of deep fakes, because it's like, it's that good.
Yeah.
It's like now it can go in and just like be someone talking just like I'm doing, and it will have the voice and it'll have the lips moving to it. And it's real time taking whatever it thought of saying that the language model gives it to say and taking that and then making it out. Geez, what else do you need? Now take that and set that up as like the thing that you're talking to. And that's like, so.
That brings up an interesting point, I think, John, on this. What, from a technological standpoint, how can we as humans build technology that can detect and segregate AI from reality? If a deep fake goes out of Trump or Biden saying something outrageous that, has national security implications, like how do we is it possible to have technology that can alert even our enemies? You ever seen the movie War Games, right? Or I think it's War Games, where they think Russia's attacking us and they think we're attacking them, but it's just the computer doing it.
Yeah, it's War Games. Yeah.
Is it War Games? Yeah. Like, we don't want the Russians to think or the Chinese to think we're attacking when we're not. And Trump says something crazy and all of a sudden we're at war over a fake video. Like, how technologically, I don't know what stops that from happening.
Well, if you have responsible parties, which the large companies will have to be, the Microsofts, the OpenAIs, and some of those ones, they can watermark with invisible watermarks. Like, it's a good technology like, I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's this thing, even back when it was just like JPEG images, you could hide a code, hide a coded message in the image because you have 16 million colors to work with, and you shifted one of them by, one over out of the 16 million, and you did it in various places, but you had, a code going into what was even contributing to the shift and so forth. It's like, if you have the thing to read that back out, you can put a code in that just is in every frame of the video that you can't take out because you don't even know how it's in there, right? Mm-hmm. So that as you go and you could try to go change the video and send it through whatever different filters, you can't get rid of. So there's a message on there, but it requires that wherever the thing got generated in the first place was doing the watermarking. If you get the technology, if it gets that, like what Microsoft has right now, to be open sourced, then there's no stopping whoever from creating. Now, people pick up on things like, oh, you notice how we went from real to fake, and at the fake point, the person wasn't quite as wrinkly, or things like this. But if they're fake all the way through, it's going to be hard to say. So
Yeah.
yes, there's ways to do it, but there's also ways to work around that if it gets out there.
Yeah. What made me think of it is that was one of Mark Zuckerberg's things. He said keeps him up at night is because the interviewer was kind of asking about these doomsday scenarios of Terminator-like AIs, attacking humans physically or something. But he's like, man, what keeps me up is the possibility of misinformation, and then the ability to spread it, worldwide using a service like Facebook or Twitter. And even if like the sophisticated actors, catch that it's AI, it still might go viral enough to influence public opinion, before it gets caught.
Well, I mean, it's already happening. So
yeah.
If you take, people talk about TikTok, but they're, the like connection to China or something. But the actual interesting thing with TikTok and with some of the others, it's just TikTok is the most viral, is the way in which it kind of rapidly creates and magnifies a filter bubble. So as soon as you start using it and you're, seem more interested in this than the other, then it starts feeding you more of that, which shifts you even further into it. So it is, architecturally set up for kind of extremism, or at least, creating huge polarities in a culture. So this worry about the AI, I'm thinking like, well, we already have and have had the worry. And, if there's maybe, there's as much good that could come from it as bad. And on the good side, if it can insert kind of some disintermediation into that bubble creation kind of thing to where it's in between, it's setting you up for, who you're going to talk to, whatever, to meet what you want to go do, but possibly help.
Do you think TikTok and Meta or Twitter have ever went into their algorithms and made them less echo chamber-ish, like, hey, let's make this not reinforce your pre-existing beliefs as much. Let's throw in some randomness. So if all you do is follow Republicans, hey, you might see some Democrat lawmaker tweets from time to time.
The throw-in thing is where I do think some of it has happened. It's like, go make sure this is getting in the feed as well, kind of thing. I don't know about TikTok. I think I've seen it in my own feed in Twitter.
Yeah, I probably have too, but it definitely is still overwhelmingly like the echo chamber effect, not rather than like, a multiplicity of viewpoints. I'm being challenged on Twitter. Usually,
people get what they ask for too.
Right? Yeah,
people are like, show me what I want. Darn it, I want to know more about yurts.
Right. And naturally, as humans, we probably just don't want to be challenged and critiqued and be told we're wrong or found out that we're actually wrong, or a fact that we believe turns out not to be true. And so those are inherent biases, I think, probably outside of technology, right?
Yeah. So in terms of the risks, there are certainly risks. In terms of like who controls AI, I worry less about it being out there open source and then used badly, because if that's the case, then it's used goodly and badly, and there's more good than bad out there. And so people can, just like the same way we do with getting, law enforcement and laws and things, is like, we'll deal with it. But on the side that I worry about is more the kind of oligarchy or the monopolistic, like, this company is now going to decide what you see or don't see, and how the world is presented to you. To me, that's scarier. I come down on the side of Jan LeCun on that. I've brought him up before, but he's the chief scientist, I guess chief AI scientist or something at Meta. But he was, before that, he's been a AI scientist forever, and he's got specific kind of views on this, where he's like, you can worry about the whole Armageddon thing with this stuff, but it's a little overblown. And even the notion of hitting AGI, next week is way overblown when you look at all of what goes into and how really dumb these super smart things are still.
Yeah. I keep going back to the Zuckerberg interview, but one of the things he said too on that is like, we're limited by physical restraints on achieving HEI, like having enough data centers, having enough electricity, having the land to build the data centers. Like, he's like, I don't care how fast the technology moves, like it's going to take time to build out the physical infrastructure to support AGI. And there's just no way around that. And so that's going to be a fundamental, it's not like it's going to never happen, but if you think it's going to happen next week, the compute power just doesn't exist right now. And there's not enough electricity to do it, you know. But yeah, that is one of the reasons he's not too worried about the doomsday. By the doomsday, I think he's referring to like this AI spirals out of control and it starts teaching itself how to do things, right? And humans can't stop it.
Yeah, it doesn't have as much that worry. You know, it is the electricity for now, but we seem to always find a way to like push back and move forward. And it could be that if transformers require more, and transformer being kind of the architecture that all these language models are based on, if these transformers, these transformer models require too much energy, then folks are going to start looking back at other models or variations on the models that do it with less energy. Just as happened with chips and like ARM chips versus Intel.
Right.
It's like you can get much more efficiency out of things than there may be a move in that direction as well.
Is that one of the metrics by which LLMs are judged? Like, is that, parameters and like all of the columns in an LLM? And then is there some efficiency metric where you could say it runs this many watts or this many tokens output per watt?
I haven't seen it on the inference side or the output, the side of running after it's already done. But I have seen that there are almost like, I think, carbon measurements as the thing is being trained. So when it's first being created, it's like, what did that one take to create? Oh, it took this much carbon.
Yeah, because I know we measure like the hardware, CPUs and GPUs, we measure them on a performance per watt basis, so you know how power efficient they are. But yeah, I think that probably will start coming into play then with the models themselves somehow. Yeah. I don't know if it's performance per watt, but there'll be some metric to measure that.
What there's the quantizing when you go and take an existing model and you chop down how many digits you're dealing with, and you say like, okay, now it can run it on my phone. Well, you're also making it run, more energy efficiently.
Yeah, the long tail of the curve is probably like the additional quality of the LLM on the long tail is probably not that great, and it uses a lot, makes the LLM much slower and less efficient. Would you think that's true in many cases? Like what you can do with a trillion parameters takes 10 times more energy, but if 100 billion, and these numbers may be off, but you still get 99% of the quality without using much.
Oh, right. So it just gets harder and harder. Like the last mile is just costs so much kind of thing. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that.
One of the, I think we talk a lot about the humanoid robots and Tesla's Optimus and that kind of thing. But every week it seems like now there's another company that has some startup that's building these things.
How about Boston Dynamics?
Yeah.
They were there first, whatever, but they just retired their Atlas robot. And like a day or two later, they went, oh, by the way, here's the new one. And
the new video is impressive.
It's creepy.
I'm gonna look it up.
So like if you think of Terminator 2 with the liquid metal Terminator, and he gets like, I don't know, slammed into a wall or something, and then he inverts so that without turning around, he's turned around in place. His face comes back through his head, and that's what this looks like. Watch what happens here.
Yeah, here's the video from Boston Dynamics.
Watch him turn around. So the biggest change, right, is they went from hydraulics on the other Atlas
Right.
to the fully electric one, and now it's just in the same lineup with all the other ones there. And then they've done so much work on talk about last mile, the last mile of instruction of what it's going to go do. It kind of knows how to carry out things. I noticed it doesn't have fingers, so they didn't really deal with that end of things yet, or we'll see if they will. But they've got years and years of experience with this, and now it'll be like, who's their partner? Did OpenAI exclusively partner with Figure, or can OpenAI come over and work with Boston Dynamics, or does Boston Dynamics work with, well, what I'm thinking about, maybe, but I'm thinking of language model. Who's their language model partner?
Yeah. Grok.
They could use, and I mean, they could be trying to go out to other folks, or other folks could be courting them, but they probably have a number to choose from, but they got to do the thing that Figure did, where the demo shows I'm talking to this thing in English and it's doing what I'm asking it to do.
Yeah. Are we at a moment here with the humanoid robots? Like, is this? It almost feels like it could be the dawn of like the auto industry, and the Model T production, and there was, I think, not long after Ford finally figured it out, there was 40 or 50 auto companies, and eventually it gets consolidated back to basically 3 now in the United States, other than Tesla. Like, in a way, like, all of the competition coming into the market at the same time actually like furthers the industry significantly more than if it was just a handful of big players, right? Like, by having Figure, by having Boston Dynamics now back kind of in the game with a relevant robot, and all these other ones that have popped up, are we going to start seeing more and more incremental advances in humanoid robots than we have in the past?
Yeah, I just was watching a very detailed, very technical kind of long interview with 2 folks from DeepMind Robotics, and the question was, where are we? And the last time that this is their second time coming on and talking about this. The first time, they said that we're between GPT-2 and GPT-3. So there's a way of kind of describing where they land. And I think that now they think they're closer to closing in on 3.5, which is the chat GPT moment for robots.
What's different in hardware, at least from software, there's similarities, but like in hardware, there's just you have a supply chain thing that has to get figured out, right? And like, and you need standardized hardware. Like, I know Tesla talked about, and Elon talked about the rotors or the actuators, something that they use in Optimus did, and there was no product out there that would work, and so they had to design their own and build it. But
that's why I wonder if Tesla, what are they called? Are they called Tesla? Yeah, the robots are from, because he has all the different companies, but it's not X.AI, it's Tesla itself, right? Has right. The robots. So Tesla and Boston Dynamics, who's backed by or owned by Hyundai, are the 2 robots that come from manufacturing. So they could make parts, and they can ramp up production of those parts, and everyone else is sort of just at the mercy of, let's go find people that can help get parts for us. So I think it's a real advantage for Tesla and Boston Dynamics to have that behind them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I mean, building a prototype is one thing, but to scale manufacturing and make it affordable is like a whole nother beast, right?
Yeah.
And
Musk talks about that. Yeah.
What was that?
Elon Musk talks about that.
Yeah. There was he didn't invent the first electric car, right? He scaled electric vehicles, what he did doing well. But I think it's exciting that, even if Figure, like, I don't really think Figure is, because we've mentioned we have like a problem with the founder. Has a questionable history with another one of his companies, but regardless, like, it's exciting. It's the same as space. Like, all of these companies starting up, trying to innovate, hiring, venture capital money going into this space, it does inevitably advance the technology, and it probably even at Tesla, now that Tesla has maybe a competitor at Figure AI, Tesla's engineers are like, hey, we have even more incentive to get this thing out to market as quick as possible.
I think the potential customers, I don't think they have to worry as much about like picking the winner. I think they have to just not pick a loser. Meaning like they if they buy something, and as long as it stays in business, and if they are getting their return on real labor savings, which is what they're after, actually make that happen, then it's such a concrete use case that you can say, yep, it was this, and now it's this, and it was worth it to us, kind of thing.
Who will be the early adopters in the humanoid robot
manufacturing?
Like, is there anything specific? Is it auto? I mean, because Tesla is going to be, I'm sure, testing it in the Tesla factories, so it might be really good at auto manufacturing and assembling, screwing on doors or something.
I think the kinds, I said manufacturing, have to take it back and say warehouse related things.
Amazon.
Which anything where, because the thing about manufacturing is if you're making a machine that there's already a machine that makes that machine, or you're making a product that there's already a machine that exists that makes that product, it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's already automated. Yeah. And there are lots of machines like that out there. My grandfather on my mother's side, who died before I was born, so I never met him, had a paper bag machine company. So like they were making paper bags. This is in the 40s or something. So like there are machines to make all kinds of things. How do you fill in the gaps on that in terms of what you put out there? And if we get good enough with the AI that's integrated on these things to where it's not like everybody's got to go and like hover over one of these things going and doing its task, but instead they're getting information from each other about what they go into. There was a really good video about this robot, was called Neo, Neo. And it's got like 10 of them walking around inside this, looks like a house, but inside these different rooms, and like one of them's sorting stuff and one of them's like on a treadmill, or they're just like off doing different things. It's like, if you get to the point where you have multiple of them and what they do is whatever needs to be done, which they'll gradually go and expand on the things they do. It won't just be go turn that screw or something. Then it's going to, I think that's, I still think it's around manufacturing and warehouse, but I don't know.
Yeah. One of the use cases I could see, and I don't know that I've ever seen anybody talk about this, is like in agriculture. If today, like, we live in a valley with a lot of vegetable produce. It's like picking onions and picking chili is 100% labor. There's not a machine that can do it. Like, if you're harvesting corn and wheat, you put a combine out there.
There are a lot of crops for which the machines exist, or if you're doing like spraying or like laser targeting some bugs or something. But yeah, there are crops where you can't do it. And I remember, if you go back in one of our own conversations here, I was telling you my interest in going and doing the rural thing, but on the side of helping train these things, getting your co-pilot and going out there.
Yeah, totally. But like it's backbreaking work. It's dangerous. It's and frankly, there's not even all of the people that used to do it in the United States. There's not hardly a labor force that does it anymore. It's almost exclusively migrant workers that come in and do that work. And so there is a huge demand for labor in that area. And agriculture is not the biggest industry, especially not compared to manufacturing, but it's still a pretty large industry, and it's a lot of wages there. And more than just like, not like trying to cut out these people's jobs, but like just there's not enough people to do this kind of work. And we have more and more, food demand just goes up every year. So,
yeah. So just to pull back on this, we've mentioned before Peter Zeihan, Zeihan, and he is a kind of global analyst, what's going to happen around the world, and with the world, wrote various books. But his big thing that he talks about over and over has to do with how horrible it's going to be in the coming decades for almost every country out there because of actually shrinking population.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about, the population keeps growing. It's actually the real worry is decrease in population. And if you look at it on a per country basis, how much it harms the economy when you don't have kind of more young people coming up to create jobs, to create demand, to kind of keep the economy going. And an aspect of that is handled by robots. When you get them down to when you have like, we need all this labor to take place, it doesn't fully answer the issue there, but there's an aspect to it where it plays a role.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't fix necessarily the demand problem, but it definitely helps on the supply side of like healthcare. We need healthcare workers to help take care of elderly populations, right? Well, that's a job that some people don't want to do. Maybe robots could help.
And Japan has been in the lead on robotics way back before they were anywhere near as capable as what we're looking at now. But they're part of the reason was they had this issue for a long time. They had an aging population and they didn't have folks who could help out in that regard. And now they saw a funny thing. It was like Japan thinks that their foreign worker kind of percentage is going to increase like all the way up to 10% by 50 years from now. So that's like a huge deal for them. And for us, it's like, wow, I think we're beyond 50%. And you're talking 10%. I think we're past 50% here, or like already or something.
Yeah.
But they need it.
Well, we're coming up on an hour. We usually keep these to about an hour. I was thinking this time, John, maybe one of us or both of us should make like, what are you wanting to see in AI in the next week or two, or what, like if you have a prediction you think you could make on a 1 week time frame that has a reasonable chance of happening? I was sitting here trying to think of something, but
people are saying Sam Altman's birthday is today or something. So they thought
really?
it was going to be a reason that they'd go and announce, but I don't think they're anywhere near. I don't think it's happening yet.
In terms of the GPT-5?
Yeah. But I mean, what would I be interested in seeing? I want to see that agent stuff we've been talking about. You're seeing little, bits of it. I want to see a better kind of substrate. There's a couple of those for robotics now, where robots are figuring things out in a room or in a world or whatever, and they've got now a language that they can pass up so that other robots know what's there and what they can do with it. And that's letting the learning take place across, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to get that action language to happen as part of the language model stuff, if something comes out around that, I think that'd be very cool.
My thought, the only thing I could think of was that Google will get big tech earnings from Google, Microsoft, Tesla, and Amazon this week. I think there's 4 of the big 7 that are reporting. I think Google is going to have a good quarter. The numbers are going to be good, but I think they're a little bit behind on where they're at, where they want to be with AI. And I think maybe there's going to be like some negative reaction about like, Gemini should be further along and we're not getting much adoption, something like that.
Yeah, I believe that.
So that would be my prediction. I think they report on Thursday, but that's all I could think of.
What about, you said Meta's coming up to report as well?
Meta is next week. Meta and Apple, I think, will be next week. This week is Microsoft, Google, Tesla's tomorrow, and what was the other one?
I thought Tesla was going to report well compared to, because they've already had their down.
We'll see. Have expectations gotten low enough is the question.
That's right.
Are they low enough to exceed now? No, Tesla's been painful. Tesla, you're long Tesla, and we been buying a little bit every day when it keeps going down, and we think long term it's great. But yeah, there could be more near term pain. I think they've got some super exciting. Everything with full self driving is incredible, and the Robotaxi might be here at the end of the year. Or early prototypes at least. So I think there's a lot to be excited about at Tesla, but there is the stock sure does not reflect that.
Okay, I'll predict that the lawsuit gets dropped.
Okay.
Tesla versus OpenAI.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, well, John, is there anything else?
No, this is great. Good to
Okay.
see you again, and
Yep.
we'll keep our eye out there, and I hope everybody else will just keep watching what's going on, because things are happening fast.
Yeah, and in the future, for all those watching, like, be sure and comment. We always love to take questions from viewers, and hear what you all want to hear us talk about, or do some research on, and we can follow up next week. So yeah, if you always feel free to drop a comment and give us some feedback if you're here. But we appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.